Okay. All right, so let me just go over a couple of the questions here, and we'll see who's going to ask you which one. Okay. Okay, so who's going to ask, what was the motivation for writing the book?
Okay.
Okay, you asked that one. So that's your motivation.
Okay.
Okay. Mark, you want to ask, who is the core audience for this book? So let me put this here. So Robert's going to ask that one. Mark's going to ask that one. I'll ask, why are the rules different? And I'll also ask, are there more important rules that are more important?
More important rules that are more important.
Yeah, that's right. Robert, why don't you ask, what happens if these rules aren't adhered to?
Oh, you get CFPB.
Death and dismemberment.
Okay, Mark, you get to ask the fun one here, which is were there any rules in particular, Keith, that you struggled with in your career? Were there? Not were.
God.
And I'll ask, you talk about lonely at the top. Let's see. You also talk about getting a life. You can't love you. Okay, Robert, if we have time, ask the. You also talk about getting a life because the company can't love. Okay, because the company can't love you back. We'll see if we get into that one. Okay, and then Mark, why don't you ask, what's the one piece of advice that you give someone who aspires to be a CEO or senior leader? That's a good one. Okay, you guys ready?
Yes.
I got a question. Can I take?
Oh yeah, yeah.
The whites.
Yeah. You need the whites. Yeah. Just put it on the floor. Yeah. Can you do that?
All right.
Yes. Okay, thank you, sir.
It helps me.
Yes, it does. All right, Keith, you ready too?
You go start.
I am ready.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to come in with an intro.
You ready?
I'm recording it, yeah. And then when I say today's guest is Keith Wyche, and you can pronounce it Wyche?
Wyche, kind of hard CH, but I'll
Okay.
answer to most any
Most
close.
anything, okay. And then when I say welcome to the best of investing, then you'll come right into it, and Rob will ask his first question, okay?
Great.
Okay, and away we. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Welcome. You're listening to the best of investing on Talk 910. This is the show where we present valuable information about real estate, the financial markets, and other economic business of the day. And for those of you listening for the first time, because we have a lot of new listeners, here's our format. A few guys sitting around a bar having drinks, without the drinks, talking business with you, the audience listening in. I'm your host, Edward Brown. I'm pleased to have as my co-host Mark Hahn of Pacific Private Money, California's fastest growing private lender, and Rob Spinoza of RPM Mortgage. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Write that number down, 888-912-1190, because you're going to use that number to answer the trivia questions for 3 vacations given away during each commercial break. That's right, we're giving away 9 vacations during this show. Now, the vacations are not sponsored by the radio station, but by Lighthouse Resort and Marina, which is located 1 hour northeast of San Francisco. The vacations are free. Their only request, a $75 cleaning fee to cover housekeeping expenses. Their website is lighthouse4fun.com. You can reach them at 916-777-5511. And today's trivia theme is movies with colors in the name. You'll understand when we get into that. Our website is Best of Investing.
The color purple.
The color purple. Oh, I should use that one. That was a good one. Especially to match your shirt there. Our website is bestofinvesting.com. Check us out on Facebook and YouTube, and I think iHeartRadio too, if I'm not mistaken.
Indeed.
Best of Investing radio show. We're also on television, Comcast Channel 26 and AT&T Channel 99 on Saturdays at noon and Sundays at 6 p.m. Today we have a special guest, Keith Wyche, who is going to discuss what really goes on in the corner office. Keith, welcome to the Best of Investing.
Glad to be here, guys. Thank you so much.
Hey, Keith, I know you've got a book out. Tell us about the motivation for writing a book about this. I think it's a fascinating topic. I think a lot of people, they look up at the house on the hill and they want to know how people got there. I think this is a similar situation. Tell us about your motivation.
Yeah, my motivation was simply based on the fact that, I struggled a long time to get to what I call the C-suite. And when I got there were a lot of surprises that caught me off guard. I'm a quick study, so I picked up on a lot of those. But I saw a lot of young professionals kind of get those opportunities. And they were kind of one and done. They kind of did a Milli Vanilli. Got in, blew it, and really had to get pushed back down the career ladder. And so this is just really an effort to say, hey, here's some things you really need to think about before you go after that job. You may think you want it, but the job you get and the one you think you're getting, it can be 2 different jobs.
Right.
So Keith, the name of your book is Corner Office Rules. Who is the core audience for this book?
You know, there's a core audience of what I would call mid to senior level professionals, those folks who are dying to get to that VP, senior VP role, but also a big part of the audience are MBA students, executive MBA students, folks who are investing in their careers and in themselves to be ready for that. So those are the two audiences that really gravitate to the book.
So, Keith, I was going to ask you, now, why are the rules different for the guys at the top?
You know, the number one rule, the reason the rule is different is because the role is different. When you're at the top, you have to think about the entire enterprise, the entire organization, just not your own individual goals or your own department's goals. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is, most of your career, you're an individual contributor. You're doing it all yourself. You're doing it your way. But when you get to the top, you know, you can have tens or hundreds of thousands of people reporting to you, and you can't do it all on your own. You have to learn how to work with, through, and around people, leveraging persuasion and influence skills.
And then are there some rules that are more important than others?
Well, I won't say some are more important. I mean, this is the obvious ones, right? Don't do anything stupid. Don't tweet anything that you'll be embarrassed about. But the ones that I see people struggle with the most are around the areas of criticism. When you're a leader, you're going to be criticized no matter what you do, no matter what decisions you make. And so you have to get a thick skin and understand that. And the other one I see a lot of people struggle with is just the fact that when you're the boss, you're always under a microscope. And so for some people, it can be tough to have their every action looked at and monitored. And we live in an age of Facebook and Instagram, and so you really have to be careful that someone doesn't catch you at a bad moment.
So were any of these rules that you write about in your book, Keith, that you had to struggle with?
Yeah, I think I struggled with the it's my way or the highway syndrome. You know, when you're successful and, you know, your way works, you know, you tend to want to make everyone go your way. But you have to learn as a leader, you know, that there's more than one way to get from, you know, here to San Francisco.
So it's like the Maslow thing. If the only tool you have is a hammer,
for me, it was a hard time letting go of the reins and empowering other people to really give advice and counsel and even make mistakes, to realize there's more than just my way.
What I was going to say, Keith, is, you know, I would think when you're the CEO or you're at the top, you know, when you're in the organization, in other places of the organization, you're looking up. But when you're in that position, do you hear footsteps of other people trying to take your job? I mean, does that get you? What happens if the rules we're talking about, what if you don't stick to those? I mean, does it go both ways? You get internal and external pressure on your position?
Well, you get tons of pressure on your position, both internal and external, and there's tons of examples of that. But really, if you're doing your job and doing it to the best of your ability, you don't worry about the necessary footsteps of someone taking your job. You really more wonder about, hey, am I doing the right thing for the business, and am I doing the right thing for the people? But you know, history is littered with CEOs who didn't necessarily come in with the right attitude.
And you talk about being lonely at the top. We always hear that, lonely at the top. Well, why is that?
Well, you know, it's not for the reason some people think. The reason it can be lonely at the top is because when you're at the top, you're privy to information that other people either A, don't know or can't be told. So, for example, you're a CEO or senior leader and you know a layoff is coming in 6 months or 90 days. You can't run around and share that information. If you're going to put the company up for sale, you can't run around and talk about that. So things, you know information you can't share. Another thing I found, particularly today, is that information gets filtered all the way up. And so typically as a senior leader, by the time you get any information, people kind of tell you what you want to hear. And so if you're not careful, you don't really learn the truth. And that's why I tell leaders, spend a lot of time talking to the folks at the rank and file, because that's where you really hear the truth. There's some people that won't tell the emperor he has no clothes.
Yeah, it's like going into a restaurant and, you know, the owner actually wants to hear if there's a complaint. A lot of people say, I just don't want to complain, but that's the only way that they're going to learn, you know, to correct things. So you have a chapter called The Perception Gap Widens. What did you mean by that?
You know, what I mean by that is that, you know, somehow the way you see yourself and the way others see you can be totally different. You know, if you have any amount of emotional intelligence, you know, you're pretty self-aware. But what you don't realize is that as a senior leader, people kind of put a Superman cape on you and give you a supernatural power that, you know, maybe you don't really have. Or they may think, well, you know, you're a CEO, you're probably snobbish or arrogant. And so you always have to be in touch with, you know, really what your perception is. And whatever that gap is, try and close it. When I got into the grocery business from Pitney Bowes, I had a perception gap because I walked around with Brooks Brothers suits and those types of things. Well, that worked on Wall Street. Doesn't work in the grocery business.
Yeah.
I had this big perception gap. But here's this, you know, know-it-all guy from the East coats with his fancy suits. And I literally had to change my approach and my wardrobe to really match the culture.
Yeah, interesting. There's one other thing in here that's intriguing to me. You also talk about getting a life because the company can't love you back. Talk about that. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, one of the things that I think we all fall into, and men more in particular, is that, we base who we are on our business card or our title and what we do, right? And so that's great as long as those things are working, but if you lose those things, you lose yourself. And so, someone asked me today, what is one of the biggest regrets I have in my career? Well, I don't have a lot of them. I wish when my kids were younger, they're all adults now, I had spent more time with things that are important to them. Because at the end of the day, any company that's worth its salt, they have a succession planning list that says if you hit the lottery today or get hit by a bus tomorrow, we know who's going to fill that seat. But your family and those of your loved ones are really important to you. You have to make time for that. Because again, the company's going to at best give you a gold watch and show you the door. Your family's going to be there for you.
So, Keith, share with us some of the advice you're giving in your book to someone who wants to be a CEO or one of the top leaders.
The first thing I really challenge people on is give me the why do you want to be that? Because it has to be more than just I want to be the boss or I want the big paycheck or I want the title. It really needs to be because you have a passion about people and helping people develop and be the best that they can be.
Well, it's definitely not going to be because I want to work less hours.
Yeah, right.
That never happens.
Absolutely. In fact, I'll tell you, you'll work more. The other surprise, and I didn't talk about it in great detail, but the higher you go in the organization, the more of your personal life and business life intertwine.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're going to dinners and eating, hotel, chicken and steak dinners at this banquet or that. And you really give up a lot of who you are and yourself for the job.
That's true. So, Keith, we're going to be letting you go here really soon. We wanted to...
Not literally, Keith. You're our boss on that.
So, give us the name of the book again, and if people wanted to look you up, how do they get a hold of you?
So great. The book is Corner Office Rules, the 10 Realities of Executive Life. You can find me at KeithWyche.com. That's KeithWyche. And feel free to follow me on Twitter at Keith Wyche.
Great. Keith Wyche, who wrote a book about the corner office. Very interesting.
Great stuff, Keith.
Very good. Keith, thank you so much for joining us at the Best of Investing.
Guys, thanks so much for having me. Enjoy.
All right.
Happy holidays.
Okay. We are going to cut to our first commercial break. And again, the theme is movies with colors in the name. This 1971 Stanley Kubrick futuristic masterpiece deals with issues of criminal behavior and free will. Hint, think of the word clock. The first three callers with the correct answer, because I don't know how many of the listening audience is that old. Of course, I guess Stanley Kubrick, that would probably give the hint there, too. The first three callers with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. I still have kind of nightmares about this. The website is lighthouse4fun.com. This is the one with the weird eyelashes, I remember. Okay, call 888-912-1190. That's 888-912-1190. The answer to this question, this 1971 Stanley Kubrick futuristic masterpiece deals with the issues of criminal behavior and free will. Hint, think of the word clock. 888-912-1190. Make sure to include your name and your email address. Speak slowly. Spell out your email one letter at a time. Don't touch that dial. The Best of Investing will be right back. Like the way I do that?
I like it.
That's fascinating stuff. I really do find. I'm gonna look into that book because I do find that stuff interesting.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. How you doing, Mr. Climber?
Good.
Mr. Climber. B-O-I. All right. The emails we received for you guys. Robert, what is buying down a loan? And do you advise it?
Okay.
Mark, if I pay a higher interest rate, can you charge me less points? Sure, why not? 20% interest, we'll charge you very low.
If you want a lower interest rate, can I charge you less points? Is that okay?
No, if I pay a higher interest rate.
Oh, higher interest rate.
Yeah, if I pay a lower interest rate, we charge you low points. Yeah, sure, why not? Oh, yeah, that works for me.
Only the government can do that.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I looked into. I got a good referral for a guy. If you're interested in the Obamacare thing, that's what this guy does. And the problem though with me is my income is boop, 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 like that, kind of crazy. So I found out.
I'm in that club too.
Yeah. The thing is, I have a fairly good rate right now with Blue Cross. And if I mess up, if the income doesn't quite fit and I don't get paid $1, I'll actually end up paying $1,000 a month. So it's not worth it. I'll just stay with what I got.
Yeah, in other words, the risk of chasing that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll save at the beginning, but the end,
Right.
I get snagglepussed. You know what that is?
Snagglepuss? Yeah.
Yes. That. All right, you guys ready? You want to get into email time, then we get into the stuff?
Sure, yeah.
Here we go. 1 and 2, and away we go. Well, welcome back to The Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hunt of Pacific Private Money and Rob Spinoza of RPM Mortgage. When we got to the first commercial break, we asked this trivia question again. The theme is movies with colors in the name. This 1971 Stanley Kubrick futuristic masterpiece deals with issues of criminal behavior and free will. Hint, think of the word clock. That's a little too big a hint.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What's the answer?
Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, a Clockwork Orange. You guys ever see that movie?
I did not see it, but I did see Full Metal Jacket, which is also Stanley Kubrick, correct?
Yeah, I didn't
Okay.
like that movie.
It was a little
I didn't think that was good. Platoon was a very good movie.
Yeah,
that
Platoon
one
was very good.
yeah,
You're right about
too good. Okay. A couple of emails here we received. Mark Hahn. If I'm willing to pay, basically, this is effectively what he's asking. If I'm willing to pay you a higher interest rate, can you charge me less points?
The answer is yes. What's nice about private money loans, or hard money loans as they're sometimes called, and that's the type of loans, in fact, that's the only type of loan we originate at Pacific Private Money, are privately funded private money loans, or again, hard money loans. You can use the term interchangeably. But one of the nice things about these types of loans is their flexibility. So in fact, I just recently did 2 loans to the same company on 2 different pieces of property. And on one loan, I charged them a note rate of 10% and then charged them 2.5 origination points, 2.5%.
Okay.
So a point is equal to 1%.
Right.
On the next loan, because they were looking to maximize the amount of cash that they were able to use from the loan, and what I mean by that is when you borrow money from a bank or a private money lender, usually the fees and such are deducted from the loan. So if you're charging points, and if it's a $100,000 loan, you're charging 3 points, he's really only getting $97,000. And then it's even less than that because title and escrow will come out of that. But on the next loan, we charged him a note rate of 12.5% and 0 points.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. So
and
he's setting more out.
And again, if that sounds like usurious or predatory in terms of lending, keep in mind that this is a corporation that has a profit model in real estate, and they were happy to pay 10% and 2.5 points for the money. And in this particular transaction, where they wanted to maximize the cash they were receiving, they said, "Hey, how about if I pay you 12.5% and 0 points?" And it's a 12-month loan, so it's a short-term financing.
Is there a minimum guarantee of time?
This particular loan, we did a 6-month
That's
guarantee, a minimum.
Right.
And what that means, audience, is that we're making them this loan, and they promise to not prepay it in the first 6 months, or if they do, they have to make up the difference for 6 months interest. So that particular investor in that note was promised a minimum return on that note rate. So the note rate's 12.5% annual, but if they only keep it for 6 months, you're making half of that, right? But that was the minimum guarantee and that's common. Although depending on the source of our funds, we also make no prepayment penalty loans as well. So it's possible that you can, negotiate a higher or lower note rate depending on your willingness to pay higher or lower origination fees. Buy down the rate or buy up the rate.
Right.
And you can also negotiate for, or just simply say, hey, I need a no prepayment penalty loan because I think I'm going to flip this property in 3 or 4 months, and we have funding sources for that as well. So.
What were the particulars on that? How much were they borrowing? What was the loan to value?
The loan to value, we rarely go higher than 70% of the purchase price. So we're making them a 70% loan. This particular property was in Southern California. It was a newer home. And this company actually that we were providing the financing for, they specialize in buying homes from people via short sale, people who bought a home at the height of the market, and they've made it their dream home. And yet the value is still a fraction of what they paid for it. And a lot of these guys used a first and a second. Maybe they put very little money down. They owe way more than it's worth, but they want to keep it. But they really don't want to be chumps and keep paying that interest rate that keeps creeping higher, because a lot of these were adjustable loans and such, and neg-am loans, and et cetera. And so this particular company that we made these loans to, they specialize in finding people who fit a certain criteria. They bought at the height of the market. They owe way more. They usually have to have at least $100,000 in negative equity. And they're making money now, and they're in the process of doing a strategic foreclosure. So they're looking for a certain type of client that really, and the last but not least, they want to keep the home.
Right.
And they're willing to go through the short sale process to have their home purchased by this company called Home Liberty, and Home Liberty will then resell it back to the homeowner at a lower price. And this is all above board. It's done with the bank's blessing. There's nothing illegal or unusual, or nefarious, right? And everyone,
they still have to undergo the foreclosure. So
right.
Yeah,
that's
they're not skirting that.
The risk is it's not 100% guaranteed that it will work. Because if an investor swoops in and buys the money at the foreclosure sale, and Home Liberty is unable to buy it, then there is a small risk that it won't work. But generally speaking, I think their performance ratio is pretty high, and they've helped save a lot of homeowners who want to keep their dream home, but again, owe more than it's worth, and they know it's going to be 10 years or maybe even longer before it ever hits.
So basically, it's really the bank who's going to take it in the shorts, so to speak.
Well,
right.
For better or worse, for the last 5 years, it's been the banking industry that's taken it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not defending them. I'm just saying that, because the homeowner's going to be able to stay there, you're going to make money, Liberty's going to make money.
And when the banking industry takes it in the shorts, and the government's, partially guaranteed some of those losses, what does that really mean? It's the taxpayer that's really taking it short. So keep paying those taxes, and we'll keep short selling those homes.
But the net result, though, from your standpoint, is that you've got a pretty smoking deal on the books, earning 12.5%.
Well, I want to step back on that in just a second, because this is the Best of Investing show. So I think Mark's point speaks to a larger topic, which is the fact that oftentimes we've been conditioned to think the lowest rate is the best, and there are other ways to finance properties where perhaps the lowest rate accomplishes a certain goal, but that's not the most important goal you have. And I think that's what you're getting at. When the rate is higher and your net cash out of the deal is greater, and that's what you need more.
In financing today, there's always trade-offs. Look, if you want 5% money or 4% money, and you can prove your income, you've got good credit, and you want to wait for the bank, you've got 30 to 45 days. And again, I don't want to speak on behalf of Robert, who's going to talk about what's happening in mortgage rates right now, which again is pretty exciting. But if you can either go through conventional or bank financing, and it takes a certain amount of time, and you have to jump through a certain number of hoops. It's highly regulated today. Or you can take advantage of the hard money / private money industry that can provide money very quickly. Oftentimes, no questions asked, because we look at a certain number of attributes of the property, and the borrower's attributes aren't nearly as important as the property attributes, and we're only lending usually 70%. So it's just, if you're willing to pay more for it, and usually again, it's not an issue as much because the borrower is usually a real estate investor. We're not making loans to people in distress at 10% or 12.5%. We're making loans to people who have a business model based on real estate investing, and they need access to leverage, they need access to capital, and they're willing to pay 9, 10, 11, 12% for the use of that money, usually for short-term purposes.
I was going to say
because they make a profit with it. They're able to, these guys are.
It's money in motion.
Yeah, I'm working with real estate investors who are solving for anywhere from a 20 to 30 to 40% annual rate of return, and And so they don't mind paying 10% for money when
Right.
they're making double or more than that. So again, it's all it's a business purpose, business decision, and one of the great things about Pacific Private Money is that we call it private money lending because guess what? All of the money we use for our loans comes from private individuals, and they get to enjoy a majority of that note rate. So if we're making loans at 9, 10, 11%, we're paying our investors 8, 9, and sometimes even 10%. So for more information on how you can do that, call us at Pacific Private Money at 415-883-2150, or go to our radio show website, thebestofinvesting.com, and you can see all our contact and email information there.
And Mark will explain how you can earn very high interest rates with very
8% or
low
more
risk.
on your money or your self-directed IRA accounts with very low risk. Absolutely.
Very nice. Okay, we're going to cut to a second commercial break. When we come back, we have a very interesting email for Rob Spinoza about buying down a loan. Well, it'll be interesting to hear what he has to say about that. Here's a second commercial trivia question, commercial break. The theme is movies with colors in the name. In this 1963 comedy stars Peter Sellers as a bumbling police inspector. The name of the title refers to a rare gem, although it has come to be associated with Sellers' character. Which colors contained in the name of the gem in question? The first 3 callers with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Their website is lighthouse4fun.com. Call 888-912-1190. That's 888-912-1190 to answer this question. This 1963 comedy stars Peter Sellers, which, if I remember correctly, was redone a few years ago with Steve Martin, who I thought did a very nice job. As a bumbling police inspector, the name of the title refers to a rare gem, although it has come to be associated with Sellers' character. Which color is contained in the name of the gem in question? Call 888-912-1190. Make sure to include your name and your email address. Speak slowly. Spell out your email one letter at a time. Don't touch that dial. The best of investing. We'll be right back. What are you keen on? What are you keen on?
I got you sneaking into my lens last week.
Oh,
wait till you see
okay,
what
yeah,
I
you
did
know what
with it.
happened? You went over there, and I was thinking, okay, he's not even getting.
Yeah.
What did you do? You walk up, you went,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You went over, he didn't know until he went back to his office. I thought that would be kind of fun. You enjoy that?
And I enjoyed it. I had a good time with the editing.
Oh, I forgot. That's right. I gotta be scared. He's the man with the editing
Yeah, that's right.
power.
He gets the
I froze it, and I won't tell you what I put below
Oh
it.
no! Listen. We had a situation on the sports show when Dawn was here, and we were doing the, I was giving away the Lighthouse Resort vacation stuff, and she didn't know for whatever reason. And she comes in, she doesn't know this camera's on. She comes in, she stands there, she puts her tushy right there, and she's leaning on the desk, and she's like this, and she's kind of wiggling a little.
How'd that
great.
show?
Oh, it went great. I emailed it to her, embarrassed the heck out of her. Said, don't you ever lean on my desk
make
again.
a GIF out of that thing that just keeps
Good.
moving over and over
Right.
again. That's funny.
Yeah, it's funny. She goes like this, and she stands up. She goes, then you see her go like this, then you see her like this again. All right, boys.
Sure.
Let's hit it.
Yes.
Welcome back to The Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hunt and Rob Spinoza. Well, when we cut to the second commercial break, we asked this trivia question. This 1963 comedy stars Peter Sellers as a bumbling police inspector. The name in the title refers to a rare gem, although it has come to be associated with Sellers' character. Which color is contained in the name of the gem in question? Rob?
Pink.
Pink, as in the Pink Panther.
All right.
All right.
I'm on the board.
You're on the board. That's right. Okay. Email we received for you because you are a mortgage broker.
Correct.
Highly intelligent, I might add.
Thank you very much.
And the question comes in.
Good call for us.
It's a highly intelligent question.
Yep.
What is buying? This is in quotations. Buying down a loan, and do you advise it?
Okay, great question. And buying down a loan in the simplest form, the way that works is somebody pays the bank points. Point is 1% of the loan amount. and they get a lower rate in exchange for that additional cost they would pay at closing. So the question becomes, why would anybody want to pay more money? Well, if you're getting a lower interest rate for that investment, then over time, the savings in your monthly payment would benefit you. So it becomes a time equation. And so when you ask, should I do it? What I'll do with the borrower is I'll walk them through the process. So I'll say, okay, well, if you pay $3,000 or 1% on your $300,000 loan, and that nets you a savings of $50 per month, you will recover your investment in 60 months, in 5 years. Are you going to be in the house that long? That's the first question. If the answer is yes, then you begin to look at the savings after that, because if you refinance that loan or sell that house prior to that 5-year period, you've essentially left that money on the table.
Yeah.
You would have been better off taking the higher rate and not investing that loan up front, or less than investing that money up
It's funny. It's almost along the lines of
it's the opposite.
question of
Exactly.
what Mark was.
And it's exactly the opposite of that. And it goes to show again that what matters most and what's most important is what matters to you. So I like to use point buy downs in scenarios where a borrower is getting a 15-year fixed loan, and perhaps that's the house they're going to die in, as they say. Because at that point, you know you're not leaving the house by selling it. And if you believe the market is at the bottom and you're buying the interest rate down as far as you can go, the likelihood of refinancing is virtually off the table.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the hot seat for a minute.
Sure.
You as the broker,
Mhm.
do you make more money if somebody buys the loan down?
That's a great question too. The answer is no, because that additional profit that they are paying is going to buy down the next rate on the rate sheet. So you are paying the lender's profit on the basis they would have already gotten. But instead of them getting it from the bank itself, you're paying that profit. So in other words, when you get a home loan these days, I would say if you get a competitive quote from a lender, there's probably 1% of profit in that loan, majority of cases. So for example, a realtor sells a house, there's typically a 3% commission. If you get a mortgage, there's usually a 1% commission in play behind the scenes. Now, if you agree to pay the lender that 1% up front, he can offer you a lower rate on the rate sheet because he doesn't need to realize as much profit out of the rate. The higher the rates go on the rate sheet, the more money is going to the broker or the bank, either one. And that's how it works. That's how the principle works. Conversely, if you were to say, well, I want to do a quote-unquote no-cost refinance, what happens then is the lender sells you a higher rate, takes that additional profit, and pays your costs.
So I can't get the lowest possible rate and no points, no fees, and you'll still pay my appraisal, right? That's what it sounds like on the radio when I'm listening to these commercials.
And not only that, but he'll also pay your mortgage every month for you. How's that? You're a good guy, Rob.
Yeah.
Not quite.
No free lunch, I think, right?
There's no free lunch, but it's a great question to have. And if you are thinking about buying an interest rate up or down, those are questions you want to ask your lender. How does it work? And asking them what they get paid is a fair question as well. But it's a sliding scale on the day that you're looking to lock the interest rate. The lower you go on the rate sheet, the more you have to pay, or the less the lender is making per note rate. And the higher you go on the rate sheet, the more the lender has at stake and can pay your closing costs above what we say above par.
So speaking of rates, how are mortgage rates this week?
This has been a tough week for mortgage interest rates, and we're seeing things up about 1/8 or 1/4 from where they started the week. And the result, that is all tied to the fact that the Federal Reserve decided to taper their asset purchases by $10 billion, 5 to mortgage-backed security and 5 to Federal or Reserve notes. So that has investors thinking that the Fed will continue to gradually reduce its position in stimulating the economy, and as a result of that, rates must go up.
So where are we about now for a 30-year?
30-year fixed conventional mortgage is in the mid-4s, 4.5%, 4.625%. You want to see that? No, still very, very competitive. You got to remember
historically speaking, it's still a great rate.
Historically speaking, you're 4% under where we've been over the last 40 years. So it's still very attractive in terms of overall perspective.
Yep.
And Rob, since you're quite the guru of interest rates and mortgages, how do people get a hold of you?
They get a hold of me. Easiest way is to look at the Best of Investing website. My bio's on there, so bestofinvesting.com. Also, certainly you can call me directly, 415-367-5959. I work out of the Mill Valley office of RPM Mortgage.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
One of the little articles I wanted to bring up really quickly here, it says a tax break for struggling mortgage borrowers ends January 1st, and that could mean big tax bills and financial hits for their neighbors.
In theory, if they don't extend it,
if
right?
they don't extend it, yeah.
Right.
So, the Mortgage Foreclosure Debt
Relief
Forgiveness
Yeah,
Act.
correct.
But can we come up with more words
They can.
on that?
Is there an acronym for that? Frack?
Something like that. Okay. Yeah, because the law is set to expire at the end of the year. It says that a return of the tax
Right.
could affect many of the 10 million Americans who owe more on their loans than their homes are worth.
Yeah, but I don't see that as being a mortgage thing. I see that as being, okay, what are you going to foreclose sooner rather than later? I mean, that's not your mortgage borrower. It makes it sound like if you get a loan this year, you're saving something. That's not the case.
Or they
It's
say
different.
in a short sale.
Right.
In a short sale,
Right.
if a property with a $400,000 mortgage sells for $250,000, the forgiven debt of
Correct.
$150,000 will be taxed after January 1st.
Right.
So
But as a seller of a short sale, you control a certain percentage of the outcome, but not all of it, because the bank has the final say.
Well, forgiveness of debt historically has always been a taxable event.
Right.
And so it has not been in the last several years, thanks to, as a result of foreclosures, where you end up with debt forgiveness because your house sells for less than you owe on it. The bank writes off that debt, doesn't go after you for it. And so what's at play here is whether or not the government will extend that for yet another year through 2014, where they'll basically say, look, we're not, as the IRS
Right.
will not
Right.
force you to recognize as income that, let's say, $100,000 of forgiven
Well, that's
debt
quite
if you
a-
let your house
Yeah.
go to foreclosure or short sale.
I mean, can you imagine the double whammy? You
Right.
get smoked out of your house, then by the way,
Right.
Now that you have no
owe this.
money and you may have even had to file bankruptcy,
Right.
you've lost your credit and all this other stuff, we're going to nail you for
That's
this
got to be
tax
the
bill.
motivation for them.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really bad. I can see because, I mean, it's one thing if you borrow money to try to make money and you messed up, but this is just you just happen to buy a bigger house than you need.
Well, and
so you didn't really benefit from it except you lived in a nicer
Or
house.
you just bought at the wrong time.
We bought at the wrong
and
time.
you took
Thank you.
advantage of high percentage financing. There was no law
Right.
against, hey, look, if everyone was out there going, hey, we can get you 97% financing on an FHA loan,
Right.
so why wouldn't you take advantage of that?
Because the government needs your money. Hello.
It's true, we have a deficit to fight, so we're going to fight it by making people who don't have any money
Yeah.
be owing the IRS for the next 10
Thank you,
years.
sir. May I have another?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to cut to another
Animals.
commercial break. When we come back, you guys have some very interesting articles.
We
and,
do.
And so I want to cut to
Stay
a quick
tuned.
I want to cut to a quick commercial break here because you guys have a lot of good stuff to share with the audience. Okay, the theme is movies with colors. Sounds funny. Okay, this psychedelic animated film is based on the Beatles' music, but it takes its name from only one song. What color is the place where they all live? All right, the first three callers with the correct answer in a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Their website is lighthouse4fun.com. Check that out. Call 888-912-1190. That's 888-912-1190 to answer this question. This psychedelic animated film is based on the Beatles' music, but it takes its name from only one song. What color is the place where they all live? Make sure to include your name, email address, speak slowly, spell out your email one letter at a time. Don't touch that dial. The best of the investing is going to come right back with some very interesting articles.
I was in Boy Scouts not too long after, that's in the 70s, that song was a hit in the 60s, and there was some joke about one camp out event, they were singing it, but they changed the words that we all live in a yellow Bill McGee. Of course, Bill McGee was the name that in Scouts that everybody used for BM or bowel movement. We all live in a yellow Bill McGee. So think about that. I just can't stop laughing.
Well, do you you guys gone to cruises before, right?
Done what?
Cruises?
No.
Have you never been on a
Cruise?
cruise?
Oh yeah, I've been on a cruise.
Okay.
Oh, no, I've never been.
Have you ever,
Gotta go.
have you ever,
Especially
yeah,
for
it's
that food.
great.
Free
Yeah,
food, all you can eat.
Yeah.
Great shows and all that.
Yeah.
My daughters love it.
A lot of times they have, various events going on a cruise ship. But have you ever seen Friends of Bill McGee or something?
Oh, floating by?
No. There's
Oh.
it's called for Friends of Bill. Meeting.
Bill W.
Is that what it is?
Oh, Bill
Yeah.
W. Yeah.
Friends of Bill W.
Bill
yeah.
Wilson.
Bill Wilson. Okay, you know what that means?
No.
I found out.
Yeah, alcoholic.
Yeah, it's an easy way of saying an
Alcoholic
AA
Anonymous.
meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Friends of Bill.
So,
yeah.
so the
Bill,
cruise
friend
ship has
Bill.
so many people on it that they can have an AA meeting and they can populate it.
Yeah, they
I guess
they don't
that's the
want
right
to say,
demographic,
Yeah,
though,
they
right?
just don't want to say,
People
we're
that are
going to have an
trapped in a
AA
boat.
meeting such and such. And
we're going to
drink
put
with all
ourselves
that
in a setting
alcohol.
where we're trapped, where like tons of food and drink and shows, and then we're going to go to an AA meeting.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, I mean, there's a lot of alcohol there. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, you know, it's not really
You buy
good
these
place to-
beads, and you don't have to pay them with cash. You just pay them with beads.
If you have to do this to get the beads.
I'd do that all day for
if,
beads.
if I do that, people are gonna throw
All-inclusive.
beads at me trying to knock me out.
Yeah, all inclusive changes the game. I mean, we've done that in Mexico before.
Okay, 12, 22, 31. We have 10 minutes. All right.
New wave of mortgage trouble.
This is about home equity lines of credit
Oh.
because they're coming up on 10 years from when a lot of them were originated, so that's interesting. This one I like a lot though. Half of defaults could have been prevented by the QM rules that are going into effect. Had the rule been in effect then, about 25% of the loans that didn't default might never have been made.
Well, that's right. And we wouldn't have had the bubble, and a lot of
So
things
wait,
wouldn't have happened.
so you do the math on that, and you say, okay, well, 47% of the loans that
I was
were
going
made
to cover this.
Yeah.
were so 25%
Are you
of the
focusing on that?
remaining 53
Yeah.
is
I was going to cover this,
47%
but I
again.
don't understand it.
You know what I'm saying? So we're not
I don't
making
even know what it is.
we're not making the loans we made then anyway.
Do you want me to
So
look
now
at
you're
it?
putting
No.
QM on
Do you
top
want me
of
to zoom
the
into it?
already restricted.
Maybe the audience knows. Can you see this thing? About the ACLU.
Oh, I have that. I have that here.
Okay.
ACLU sues FHFA over the eminent domain plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, I'm trying to think, because to me, the ACLU is always the bad guy.
Right.
Okay.
And they are in this case too.
Okay, there we
Yeah.
go.
There. Because FHFA means that Fannie and Freddie are going to, or what
So
they,
you can't do eminent domain.
right, but then it says at the end of the article that the ACLU lawsuit says it makes no sense because they are not going to pursue eminent domain against Fannie and Freddie loans. So they're just going to go after the private investors. That, like if your loan is, yeah, right. So isn't that discrimination?
Yeah, ACLU always discriminates. They're notorious for that.
We could go on and on about them, but I knew you would love that one. It's right in your wheelhouse, so I credited it.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Okay. Just remember, the ACLU is always the bad guy.
I always knew that.
you could get kicked off the air for
Hey, so we're not on yet. Cut that out. You cut that
I'll
out.
be the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah. Yes, I know. It's what's going to happen? To get the Duck Dynasty guy? Something
Yeah,
like that,
right.
You know,
I mean,
right?
you can't.
See, if he says he hated Christians because the religion is garbage, they would have like.
I don't even know what he
rated it.
said. I just saw it was a headline, right?
All he said was that he thought Christianity or that gay being, that.
Being gay was wrong.
Well, no, he said it was immoral.
Right. So yeah, there you go.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Can't say that.
Spend the rest of your life repenting for it.
Okay, ready? Here we go. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hahn and Rob Spinoza. When we got to the third commercial break, we asked this trivia question about movies with colors. This psychedelic animated film is based on the Beatles music, but it takes its name from only one song. What color is the place where we all live?
Yellow Submarine.
That is
All right.
yellow. Very good. Okay, you guys take it away. You got some very interesting articles.
You want to shoot more? Go ahead.
Well, just some quick numbers here. It's almost the end of the year here, but the November stats came in, and what I find what's interesting is that we're going to have fewer home sales in California in calendar year 2013 than we did in 2012.
That is interesting.
And what's interesting is the website First Tuesday, which is
Educator.
educator for the real estate industry, is quote blaming that on, if you want to use that word, on the fact that in 12 we had a lot of speculator driven. There was a lot of real estate investors who were out there buying, fixing, and flipping, and as the prices have gone up, that activity has actually slowed as prices have gone up and yields have gotten thinner. So we've actually had less activity. But the numbers, here's some interesting numbers. In November, we had 33,000 sales in California. That's still down from a high. That's almost half of the sales that were in 2004. So in 2004, we had 60,000 sales of homes in California, and we're at 33,000. Interestingly enough, this article says that in order for the real estate market to fully recover and quote, in fact, be a normal market, that we would need to average 60,000 unit sales per month over the course of a year for it to be
Yeah.
an average market. So we're very far away from that. And one of the reasons why we're still far is because we still haven't recovered enough in terms of pricing to allow everyone to freely move within the real estate market. That's number one. Number two,
Yeah.
we don't have enough new home construction yet because, again, the numbers don't quite work for that. But maybe most importantly is the income. We still have a jobless rate and a recovery where people's real wages are actually have not been growing in this past decade in terms of where other inflation, the inflationary effect on other pricing, including real estate, is still more expensive today given the amount of income people are earning. So it's really quandary. This particular article is not predicting increases on average in California in 2014. So it remains to be seen. There's a lot at work. There are a lot of variables that affect what's going on in real estate right now. And I just find it curious that that at least now it looks like maybe we're not in a bubble.
I'm going to be Ronald Reagan here for a second and say I'm from the government and I'm here to help. because where you're going with this whole thing is on top of that now. So we know we've got to recover that. We acknowledge that real estate is a key and core component in an economic recovery. And here we are poised to go into 2014 where we have a lot of the Dodd-Frank bill going into effect, and many industry people are looking at this and saying this is going to further restrict access to credit. It's going to make things more expensive. I don't know if you guys caught, but recently the FHFA also noted that they would be raising the guarantee fee, the G fee, on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac backed loans. Now, that is a huge percentage of the loans that get done for your primary home buyers. You know, your first-time home buyers, your move-up buyers, your conforming buyers. They're all, they all fall under FHFA, and they're going to increase those fees. And the reason they're going to do that is to try and promote private mortgage investment into the market and take the government-backed stuff out, gradually. But what they've also done through Dodd-Frank is they've basically made it very difficult for the private mortgage investors to enjoy the same foreclosure defense as QMs, qualified mortgages, which are essentially Fannie and Freddie loans. So again, you have the government going in two different directions at once, and you have the housing market, which industry stat upon stat tells us needs to be in a certain place to promote economic health and growth, and job wage increases and employment increases, and yet our Congress people are working against us in that regard, implementing a lot of this regulation going into
Congress going against us? No. I remember you're from the government. You're here to help.
Yeah, that's right. And I think he said that's the worst thing you could possibly hear.
No, what you're talking about the, we refer to it in the industry as the QM, and that stands for qualifying mortgage. And audience, all that really means is that what this new layer of regulation that was created as a result of the Dodd-Frank legislation passed a couple of years ago. This particular new legislation is going into effect January 10th of 2014, and it essentially delineates to the banking industry, to the lending industry, the types of loans you can make and under what conditions you can make these loans, and the underwriting guidelines that must be adhered to so that the banks don't make loans to people that can't afford them.
Right.
And that all sounds like in the public service and for the public good, but the challenge with that is that, especially in California and particularly in the Bay Area where you have a lot of self-employed people with sporadic income, the belief is that the qualified mortgage lending guidelines and new rules that go into effect January 10th are really effectively going to result in fewer home loans, fewer buyers qualifying, and a more difficult borrowing environment.
And if you're a buyer or a seller, I mean, the thing I hear myself saying to my realtor partners and my borrowers is I don't want to be doom and gloom and pessimistic about it, but you guys have got to understand that if you're playing in the borrowing arena in 2014, you plan to buy a home, you've got to study the tape. You are the visitor going into the home field advantage of the lending industry, and you've got to know what the playbook is. You've got to know how they're going to work and how they're going to treat you, and what to expect if you expect to have a positive outcome. And to Mark's point too, I'm looking at an article right now analysis by Goldman Sachs says that if the QM rules had been in place back during the boom years 2005, 2006, 47, it might have prevented 47% of the foreclosures that happened.
Wow.
That sounds great, right? But what it also says is, had the rule been in effect then, about 25% of the loans that didn't default would have also been prevented from getting a loan. So if you think that in the time since, okay,
So a lot of people would have been, a lot of people who are living in homes
right now
that they
that
purchased and they're not in default, they wouldn't have been able to qualify to buy them.
that's correct, and you have to interpret these stats like I do, where you say, okay, well, if 47% of the people, that foreclosed, we haven't been making those kinds of loans for 5 years. So you have to look at the environment now and say, if you want to hold this to be true, we are now 50% down from this, and you're taking 25% of that remaining 53%, and that actually equals almost half.
Okay, now my head's spinning a little.
Sorry about that. All I'm saying is that we really have to see how this thing's going to play out, because I think the restrictions that the government's going to impose on lending that has already become very, very, not restrictive, but such high quality. The borrowers we work with now, they have to document everything. They have to have their credit scores in a certain place, and the rules will go on top of them. And I think that's problematic.
We haven't had easy money in 5
Right,
years,
right.
And 5 years
It's
later, the horses have long gone, the
barn
weeds
and
are
you're
growing,
exactly
the
right.
barn's falling apart, and now they're going to pass
Great analogy.
a new slew of laws to make it even harder to make bank loans.
So as buyer and seller, you have to understand this, that if you're working with your real estate agent, your mortgage professional, be aware that these changes are coming, and position yourself to succeed, even though they will be in place.
So I don't see a real estate bubble happening
I agree
in
with that.
2014 or 15 as a result of this. And that part is good news. I don't
I
want
agree.
to see a real estate bubble anytime soon. But I do like the idea of a healthy real estate market with gradually increasing or appreciating real estate values. I have no idea whether this lays the foundation for that.
Right.
Okay, we're gonna have to cut out here. So really quickly, Mark, how do people get a hold of you if they want to earn over 8% relatively safe?
Call us at 415-883-2150. That's the number for Pacific Private Money, 415-883-2150, or go to pacificprivatemoney.com.
And Rob, how do people get a hold of you for mortgages?
415-367-5959, or check out bestofinvesting.com, and my bio's right there, email information, website, and all that other good stuff.
All right, audience, thank you very much for, and I guess, or
Thanks for listening.
hosts. Yeah. Okay, here, let's try this again. Here's our thoughts for the day. To me, a balanced diet is a cookie in each hand. And a wise man once said, no man is truly married until he understands every word his wife is not saying. I thought that was really true. Okay, tune in next week you've been married as long as I have. You know that's true. Tune in next week to the Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away 9 more free vacations for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening, and have a very Merry Christmas out there.
Happy holidays,
On
everybody.
behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.
Good job, guys.
And that's a whap. And that's a whap. Wabbit.
Wascally wabbit.
You wascally wabbit. I'll have a wabbit on why.
Okay, let's get this.